You're listening to Turning Hard Times into Good Times with your host, Jay Taylor. If you have a question or comment about today's show, Jay would love to hear from you at 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You can also send an email to questionsfortaylor@gmail.com. That's questions, the number 4, Taylor@gmail.com. Now, back to our program.
Welcome back to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really pleased to have Dr. Quinton Hennigh with me once again. This time he's here to talk about Eloro Resources, a company that he is a technical advisor to. Eloro trades in Toronto under the symbol ELO. You can buy it down here in the States, as I have, under the symbol ELRRF. I believe there's around 61 million shares outstanding. As far as I know, they haven't done a financing recently. U.S. price at $4.25 a little while ago when I checked it here in New York. That's in U.S. money, giving it a market cap, if my numbers are right, around $260 million. The company's primary focus is on the Iska Iska silver tin-rich polymetallic project in Bolivia. The geological setting is in a very large caldera where several breccia pipes have been identified, at least 3 of which are mineralized, So I want to hear more about it because there have been some very long intersections that have just been announced recently, the most recent drill holes, and I think one of them pierced through another breccia pipe that's mineralized. But Quinton, thanks for joining me, and I hope you can update us on this very exciting story. Thanks for joining me again.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Jay.
Now, maybe just give our listeners an overview of the Iska Iska Project. I mean, this is quite unusual. It's got so many different minerals, so many different metals that are potentially of value. So talk to us a little bit about the project and perhaps why there's so much optimism surrounding it.
Sure. Look, it is what we call a polymetallic system, poly meaning, multiple or many different metals, metallic. The system is typical of others in this region. Bolivia is in kind of a unique position in along the Cordillera margin. This is the mountain range that basically encircles really the whole Pacific, but in particular in South America, the Andes. And it's an area where there's been some what we call well-differentiated granites. These are intrusive magmas that came up that are highly evolved, and when you see magmas like this, sometimes you get a lot of different metals, basically transition metals, like what you would see in the periodic table. Now, in particular, silver is ubiquitous in these. Often zinc and lead are as well, but some have tin, and this one has actually very, very good tin. We also see gold. We see a bit of copper. We see unusual metals like indium, for example, bismuth, things like this. But it is truly a classic Bolivian-style tin-silver polymetallic system. The best analog for this is the Potosi district, which is from our property, Iska Iska, is about, I believe, 180 kilometers due north of us. Potosi is a somewhat more eroded version of a caldera like this, and because it's been more eroded, the old folks, we're going back to Spanish time, were able to get in there and mine a lot of the silver in the early days. And Potosi, is really probably the single biggest producing silver deposit on Earth. It's produced well over 1 billion ounces of silver. It's also produced a lot of tin. A lot of people they don't know much about tin. Tin's kind of an unusual metal. Not too many people are familiar with it, but Potosi has been a world-class supplier of tin for many, many decades. So what's exciting about our project, Iska Iska, is that the caldera has not eroded all that deeply. In other words, the system appears to be entirely preserved. We have, as you said, a large caldera complex. It's about just under 2 kilometers in diameter. And what a caldera is effectively the throat, if you will, of a very, very large volcano. You can imagine the size of a volcano. If you have a caldera that's 2 kilometers, it's a pretty good size, pretty good size volcano. But the magmas, okay, so everybody knows that a volcano has a magma chamber at depth that feeds the magmas that then form the lava in the volcano, or the material that comes out of the ground. Well, some of those magmas, as the volcanic activity subsides, they rise up and they kind of park themselves a short distance below the surface. So that some of them might be a few hundred meters, some might be a couple of kilometers. But these magmas, these pulses of magma, they continue to intrude the volcanic neck, and each one in this case seems to have brought metal with it. So we have a very complex, kind of like, think of it as three-dimensional mushrooms. We have a complex system in which repeated pulses of magma have formed these mushroom-like bodies of mineralization. So in our drill holes, for example, the last drill hole that we announced, we actually see two different very, very broad zones, as well as some smaller zones. But the big, broad zones, 100-plus meter zones, are just an absolute smorgasbord of metals. Look at the numbers in the press release. You'll see what I mean. In some places they're high in silver and zinc, for example, and then in other places they're higher in tin, and then in other places they're higher in gold. Each one of these mushrooms, or each one of these pulses that form this system is unique, but it brought a lot of metal with it. It is an absolute remarkable discovery.
Now, as I understand it, there's three pipes so far that are mineralized that you know of. I mean, there's other pipes in this caldera, I believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the May 4th announcement was the first assay that came from the central breccia pipe, which is another really large one, 56.2 meters, grading 196 grams per ton silver equivalent.
Yes.
Do I have and can you give our listeners some sort of a sense of the scope of both the Santa Barbara pipe, which you've got a lot of holes drilled into, and the central breccia pipe? These are big things, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And while the breccia pipes themselves are very important to the story, it's not the end of the story. Like, all the mineralization is not confined to these pipes. What we're finding is there's actually substantial mineralization outside of the pipes. For example, in that release you mentioned a minute ago in early May, we also had a very long channel sample along one of the artisanal adits that goes in to the Santa Barbara pipe. But the bulk of the mineralization was actually in the wall, in the margin of that pipe. So I guess the way I would describe this is, I kind of gave the three-dimensional mushroom kind of picture a minute ago. But if you look at it in plan view, you look straight down on it, it's really a ring of breccia pipes that forms the margin of the caldera. So you have kind of a daisy chain, like one pipe after another, and they actually encroach on one another. They actually almost, in some places they do touch one another. We do have, we've documented at least 3 mineralized pipes now, but they're drilling down, I believe they're drilling down at Porco Sur, which is the southernmost pipe at the moment, and I think it too will be mineralized. What's absolutely astonishing is, I mean, I would like to say, this pipe has this and this pipe has that, but it's really a collage of pipes. And what we're finding is we have yet to find the limit of the mineralized system. Every single hole we've drilled has hit mineralization. We haven't found the outer boundary of the thing. We haven't found the depth. Like virtually every hole that we've drilled is bottomed in mineralization. Even holes that we have down, upwards of a kilometer deep, they're still in mineralized rock. I'm not saying the entire thing is mineralized, but what we have in each hole, look at the news releases. Typically we have, 2 or 3 long intercepts in each hole with a bunch of shorter intercepts. Volumetrically, a lot of what we've drilled, in fact, probably over half the core we've drilled, is mineralized. I think in that last hole, if memory serves, there was something around 64% of the overall length of that drill hole was mineralized.
Wow.
Okay, it was reportable intervals of mineralization. I'm a gold guy, and I try to rationalize this because it is complicated. I would just suggest to people you can kind of think about this in terms of gold equivalency, if that makes you feel better, and that's how I deal with it. But you kind of look at the silver equivalent numbers that we publish, and then you can convert them to gold equivalent. And I think if I did my math correct, which I'm pretty sure I did, the 64% of mineralized interval or hole in the last one had a weighted gold equivalent grade of about 1.4 gram. I mean, we're talking like 430 something meters of 1.4 gram gold equivalent. Yeah. That does not fall out of the sky every day. That's just insane.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Quinton. So what can you comment a little bit on the exploration program that's in place now and what the objectives of them are? Because it seems to be almost overwhelming.
Well, it is. Like, they've done a great job ramping up at site. They built a new core facility. They've got a new logging software, and they're getting all the systematics worked out. Right now, there's 3 drills operating on site. 2 are operating from surface, and they're drilling holes up to a kilometer deep. We also have 1 deep capacity underground rig because there's little adits and stuff. We can actually get back in and put up drill stations inside the mountain effectively, which saves us a heap of drilling because we don't have to drill from surface with that rig. And that's our third tool, our third rig. All right, now they're producing typically over 300 meters of core a day. This has been a bit overwhelming. So, rather than, like bringing another rig up right now, they're trying to get to equilibrium and caught up with logging and stuff. But they will. They'll get, there's a lot of good people, good geologists in Bolivia. Osvaldo has a lot of good connections, and he's been able to staff things up. I think there's 33 holes that are drilled or something like this, and many of those are in the lab for assay right now. Hole 10, for example, which is probably going to come sometime in the next few weeks, I'll say, is a phenomenal hole. It had just a crazy long interval of I think it was 500 meter or more of continuous mineralization. Quite interesting. Look, it is, it seems overwhelming, but it's a good problem to have, I guess is the way I would put it. When you can't find the edge of your mineralization, it's usually a good outcome.
It's a good outcome. Well, just real quickly with a couple of minutes left here yet, on tin. I mean, what is the value of tin? I have no idea about the tin market.
Look,
is that a valuable metal in this project, do you think?
I checked tin price this morning, over $33,000 per metric ton, Jay. Whoa. It's getting towards all-time high. I believe that might even be an all-time high. Look, tin is not used for tinning, in cans and stuff so much. That was in the old days. But where's tin's very important these days is electronics. It's basically the foundation for solders that, used in electronics and many other uses. So, yes, it is highly needed, especially in the new green economy, if you want to go down that road. But what makes it also very important is that there haven't been a lot of primary tin discoveries in recent times. So, as an industry, a mining industry has not focused on certain metals, and tin is one of them. It's really in deficit. So a lot of the good tin deposits are being mined out or have been mined out. We need to find the next generation. I think we found one of the biggest right here.